I'm Naomi Lynn with Light 98.7. We've teamed up with the American Heart Association and their Go Red for Women campaign. Now they've got a special event going on in May, and because of that, we decided to take a look at our local survivors, stories and information from those affected with this firsthand. Now I'm here with Christine Meyers, and I understand that you actually have like a pacemaker inside.
That's correct.
Now, can you tell me about like the days leading up, the events leading up before you knew anything was even wrong?
Well, it all started at work about 2 years ago. I stood up to answer my boss and fell into his arms instead, just passed out, and that was the first time that anybody really saw me go through what I've gone through for 30 years. Before I stood up, I was feeling like a rapid heartbeat. And I kind of just stood up quick and went down. But it was my coworkers that all looked at me and said, well, it's just a panic attack. I've had them for 30 years. I'll be fine. They wanted to bring me to the emergency room. I go, no, I'll be fine. And sure enough, I worked all day. But there was one coworker that stood out and said, I don't care what you say. That is not a panic attack, what you just did. Your eyes were fluttering in the back of your head. And she gave me a name of a doctor, a cardiologist in Syracuse, Dr. Daniel Fuelhan. He works for Central New York Cardiology. He did a complete workup on me, things that I had never had done before, and could find nothing. He didn't want to really dismiss me, but he said if I ever had anything like that happen again, please call him. Because he made me wear a Holter monitor, did a stress test. I passed everything with flying colors. My heart is good. But almost to a year later, I passed out again at work, and then one night I was going to bed, and I had company there. I was talking to the company, and all of a sudden I got the rapid heartbeat again. Really awful this time. So I stood up, because you're kind of like embarrassed, you know, my brother-in-law was here from Colorado, talking to him. I stood up, and I was just going to go to the bathroom, and I went flat down on my face. Broke my teeth off, ripped my lip open, was out for a couple seconds. Thank God my brother-in-law was there. He was a cop. So he did some medical things for me. I mean, blood was all over. They brought me into the emergency room, but the only thing bad about that was I wasn't seen until 3 hours later.
Wow.
Now, no EKG taken, nothing. Blood dripping off my lip. They were told what happened, and no response.
Wow.
Probably a panic attack, because they're used to that. So I stayed in the emergency room for, I think it was 10 hours, all night long, waiting to get sewed up. And I never saw a plastic surgeon, just saw a nurse who sewed my teeth and my lip. It wasn't a good experience. I did have enough sense to call the cardiologist in Syracuse the next day, because it did happen again.
Right.
This time a little bit more severe. He wanted to see me immediately. My husband brought me up to Syracuse. He just shook his head and said, I'm really sorry that I let you go. I knew something was wrong, but we couldn't really put a finger on what was wrong.
Right.
So he did another stress test, still couldn't find anything. Did some blood work, found out that my thyroid was way off. I had a sluggish thyroid. He wanted to go a different way with the electrical parts of your heart. The upper chambers, because everything about my heart was fine.
Right.
But if your upper chamber and your lower chamber are not working together, you have an irregular heartbeat. So, but wearing my Holter monitors, it was never found, or through a stress test, it was never found. But he said there was this doctor in Rochester at Strong Memorial, Spencer Rosario, who is an electrophysiologist specialist. And that's all he does, is specialize in this kind of heart problem.
Right.
So I went out there, and he was going to try to reproduce what happened to me.
Sounds scary.
Yeah. So you get shot with adrenaline, and they kind of watch your heart. And he was kind of like playing with the upper chambers with the heart, trying to get it going the way it was going, and it never did. But prior to me going under, it was an operation. He said, I would like to install a loop recorder.
Okay.
And that's like a Holter monitor, but it's put inside, and it's attached to your heart. And it can last for 3 years, and it will read out at the doctor's office. And I don't even have to go to the doctor's office. It will read through a machine, Medtronic.
And it kind of reads what your heart is doing.
Right.
Yeah.
But it will also, this is how far technology has come. It would tell the doctor that when your heart stops, they know it. They called me. They called me 3 times. I was in Texas. I wasn't even in the Utica area. They called me and said, "Where are you?" "I'm in Texas." "I guess you can't come to Syracuse right now. Your heart just stopped 3 times.
Wow.
So, I wasn't even in the area, and this thing is working like this.
Right.
That was in July, and then it was Thanksgiving, making Thanksgiving dinner, getting things ready. I get a phone call from Syracuse and a phone call from Rochester. Both doctors are on the phone. "How do you feel? Do you feel tired? Do you feel faint?" "No." I said, "No, I don't feel anything. I feel like I'm coming down with the flu." And that's the only thing I can say is that every time I did pass out, I felt like I was coming down with the flu, cold symptoms, achy all over. But not what they were saying, tired or anything. And prior to me passing out, it was always a rapid heartbeat. But I always, been told it was a panic attack, and I was always given medicine for that. I just kind of just went with that.
Right.
And then it was so out of control for that last time. I was holding on to my chest. My chest actually hurt. So when they called and said it would stop 3 times that week, and that I wouldn't be able to drive anymore, he said, "You need a pacemaker." And I was, put pacemaker and old people together. And, the doctor says, "I just put one in an infant. I just put one in a football player, and he's going to be playing in 6 weeks from now." Pacemakers are in children and young people. This is tried to prevent something severe happening, irregular heartbeats. There's all different reasons why you have them.
Right.
I thought I was in like a level 1 heart, where the heart wasn't working properly, but that was probably back in my 20s. And I'm 58 right now. I was a Boilermaker runner. I exercise at least 4 or 5 times a week. Stress, high. I just had a hard time believing that this kind of thing was wrong with me.
Right.
And I think it was the thing that he said to me, because both doctors said, "How did you get her to come in?" And he goes, "Well, first I told her she couldn't drive anymore. And then I told him I had a babysit for my grandchildren, and he said, 'And who's going to take care of you when you're on the floor? How old are those children?'"
Right.
And I think that really hit home. He gave me 4 dates in December to pick one to come out, and he would put the pacemaker in. I went on December 3rd of this year. When I went into the hospital, I could barely walk from the garage to the inside, and when I sat down and talked to the nurse that were taking my information, the whole room went spinning.
Wow.
And so I got up, or they made me sit in a wheelchair. They put me in. I don't know what number I was to be the pacemaker, but I got to be number 1. And after it was all said and done, I had 2 leads put in, one in the upper chamber and the lower chamber, because I was in complete heart block.
Wow.
So I really wouldn't be here for the technology, and I believe that the American Heart Association and the money they put towards research has developed this loop recorder and given doctors like Dr. Rosario this ability to put them in. And you don't even have to be in a doctor's office, and they know what's happening to you.
Right.
It's kind of awesome.
That's really amazing technology.
Right.
Like, I've never even actually heard of that.
No, I
until
never
you
heard of
just
it
told
either.
me, and
No.
it was.
And a loop
Wow.
recorder looks like a thumb drive.
Oh, really?
It was just like a little thumb drive. It was right underneath the skin. And you can't really even see it. The pacemaker is right underneath the skin. It's MRI compatible. I can walk through stores and not set off alarms. I can go to an airplane, and I don't set alarms off.
Right.
That's old school, and
Right.
that's what the way they used to be. Like, you couldn't be near microwaves or anything like that.
You don't even have to worry about
latest.
that. Yeah.
It's the latest.
Now, with everything that's happened, how are you feeling now? Do you feel back to normal?
It took a while. They have to set it at different settings.
Okay.
And mine was set at, I think they said everybody's at 60 beats per minute. But they found that was a little bit too fast for me. And that was probably why I could withstand standing up and having my heart stop, they set it down to a athletic level of a younger person, and now I'm fine. But when it was set to the higher rate, every time I used it, I could feel it.
Right, right.
And I kind of liked that I didn't know.
Right, yeah, so it's understandable.
And then it was also on a 24-hour schedule where it would just reset itself to where it needed to be. And it was funny, I was just watching Jimmy Fallon, just laughing, and 5 of midnight every night, this thing would go off, 80 beats per minute. And I was like,
Ready to go.
What the heck is that? And so I went back to Rochester and they reset it, and it's kind of like see how you do with that.
Right.
And, they felt that they could lower it down to 50 beats per minute with me. So that's where I am right now. Just was at the gym running, seemed to be fine.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome that you can, go back and, live a normal, regular life, especially with something, so scary and
Right.
the unknown,
I think the biggest thing is that I didn't know my heart was stopping. So I
Right.
wasn't really that scared. Like everybody goes, weren't you scared? I go, I didn't know anything.
Right.
I felt like I was coming down with the flu. And that's not really a typical symptom. Most people either have back, neck, really tired and exhausted. And I didn't have any of those.
Wow. Now, is there any words of wisdom, advice, anything you want women to know, so maybe something like this doesn't happen to them?
Well, yeah, I would seek another opinion. I stayed in the area here, and as I said, if it wasn't for a coworker, that nobody actually saw what happened to me when I
Right.
went through these things, because I always left the room. But then as I got older, I was fainting, and when somebody actually witnessed it and said, that's not right, that is not right, you need to seek another opinion. And it took a whole year. I mean, that doctor out there couldn't find anything wrong with me. The doctors here couldn't find anything wrong with me. I guess when it gets to that severity, you just have to keep looking, and just to know that technology is out there, and if you're willing to go through that. I didn't have to go through that test where they re-stimulated my heart. That was very scary, and even before I went in, he said, if I don't find anything, I'd like to put the loop recorder in for 3 years and monitor you. Because it's all different. Heart blocks are all different levels.
Right.
Some not so good. And I have a very bad history of heart in my family. So I had a father die suddenly. His father died suddenly. My brothers had 3 heart attacks. So heart is definitely in our family.
Right.
Yeah.
And that would just make it more scary, I think, as,
Yeah.
you start going through this stuff, but in the end it looks like what you've got done and everything is back to normal, and,
Yeah, it took a while.
Right.
Everybody always all my friends always wondered, why did it take so long? But, as I said, I had other things thrown in there. With the heart block came seizures, and Hashimoto's with the thyroid, which is also the heart lupus, and then I tested positive for lupus. So I had a lot of other things come into play in that year, which
Right.
gave the doctors a hard time to try to figure this out.
Yeah, especially if you might get symptoms from
Right.
one thing or the other,
Right.
to try to figure out exactly what's going on.
Right. But I think what it all stemmed was the heart block.
Right.
Because if your heart stops, then your body starts to break down other ways. So.
Right. Exactly.
But we're getting on the mend.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna get
good.
there.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear it, and I'm so glad you said you still were going to the gym and running,
Yeah,
and
just left.
yeah, just
Yeah.
like back to normal. That's really awesome. I want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Okay.
Now, the 2015 Go Red for Women Luncheon and Health Fair is Wednesday, May 6th. You can get more information for that at heartofutica.heart.org. And make sure you check on light98.7.com. We'll have more stories from local survivors and everything going on with the American Heart Association.